Hey guys, so in this tutorial we're going to be doing pagination with Strapi and Nuxt, and I'm going to be doing it on a list of posts. So I have here with me 5 posts, and first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our GraphQL playground. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our list of data. So I'm going to grab my list of posts, and I'm going to grab the title field and the content. And so we have our list of posts, first post, second post, all the way to our 5th, along with its content. So in order to do pagination with Nuxt, we're going to need 2 arguments. The first one being limit, where we can set how much or how many posts we can display at a given time. So if I want to display 3 at a time, I just have to set the limit to 3. Set the limit to 5, again, we will display 5 posts. So now the second argument is called start, and this argument takes a number and starts at 0. So if I set my limit to display 2 posts at a time and we set the start to 0, it will display the first 2 posts, and if I increment start, it will display the next 2 posts. So we got the second post and the third post. Go up one more, should display the third and the fourth, and so forth. So we don't want to statically pass on a number, but instead we want to use a variable, and I'm going to call my variable start, and I will declare it $start, and it's an integer. So now if we go down here and click the query variables, we're going to test to see if this our start variable is working, and we'll give it where are we at, 4th and 5th. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's set it to 0, and so there you have it. We have our first and our second. If we go up 1, it will display the second and the third. So our variable is working. So now I'm going to take my GraphQL query over to my Nuxt application, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it Apollo, and I'm going to place all my GQL files inside this folder. And I'll paste my query inside this file. Now I'm going to create a page called posts.view, and we'll set up our template, and let's just put in some type of title or some kind of title. I'm going to call mine posts list, and we'll just see if our page is up and running. So now let's open up the web browser, and we'll navigate to the post page that we created, and there's our title. So what we're going to do next is we are going to import that GraphQL file we just created in our Apollo folder. So let's open up a script tag inside our post.view file, and let's import, let's call it post query, and we'll import the GQL file inside the Apollo folder. And we'll call on Apollo, and we'll name our data posts. We will do a prefetch true, and the query that we'll use is posts query, which is this that we just imported. And also we have to set a variable, or set our variables. Since we do have a variable start, we have to give it a value. So we'll just give it a null value for now, so that way we don't have to use the variable, and it will just query the data as if though that variable doesn't exist. So let's initialize our data from Apollo. So we'll have to use the same name as our data name here. And we'll leave it empty. So guys, again, our initialized variable posts is the same name as our data name inside our Apollo query. So now we can use this, and we can loop through our list of posts. So let's create a div and a v4 post in posts, which again, this refers to the posts variable, which contains the data from Apollo. And we're gonna need a key. Whoops. And the key we're gonna use is the post ID. So this isn't in our GraphQL query right now, so let's just quickly add that and hit save. And now we can render the post title, title. And now let's open up the browser and see if that works. Refresh. No, it didn't work, so we will go back and v4 post and post.id, it's correct. Oh, post title. So this has to be a capital, since in our GraphQL query it's also capital, so it is key sensitive. Let's hit save, and let's open up our browser, and there you go. We have our list of posts, the first post and the second post. So it only shows 2 because in our GraphQL query we have a limit set to 2. So if we switch this to 4, hit save, now we have 4 posts. Now we'll create the load more button. Let's have a look at that. And there's our button. So now we're going to add a method to this button. I'm going to go over to view Apollo pagination documentation. So type that on Google, and we'll select the first link, and we're going to copy this method So we're going to copy this method that's in this example. So we will delete this variable first. And we'll paste the code under the Apollo query. Now we got to make a few changes to this method. We're going to take this off right here. And I believe this grabs our query. So we will change the tags page to posts, which refers to this. I'm going to delete these variables right here since they're not the variables that we're going to be using. If we look at our query, the variable we need is start. So we'll add start. And we will use a data property for this. So I'm going to create a data property called start. And I'm going to set its initial value to 0. And I'll set this to the data property start. I'm also going to change the amount of posts that we're showing. So currently right now we have 4 posts, and I'm going to change that to 2 posts. So that way when we click this load more button, it's going to take more than 1 click to load all our posts, since we only have a total of 5 posts in our Strapi application. I'm gonna head over to my post query, and instead of changing this to 2, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this into a variable, and of course I gotta declare it at the top as well and set it as an int. Now I'll head back to my post.view file, and I'm gonna call the limit variable in my Apollo query inside my view file. So variables return limit. And I'm gonna set this to a data property instead of giving it a number value. So I will create a data property called, let's call it amount of posts. And I want to show 2 posts, so we'll give that a value of 2, and we'll call it this dot amount of posts. So now the limit will be set to 2. And let's just add a comma here, hit the save, and let's check it out on the browser. And as you can see, we got 2 posts. Now let's go back to our start variable over here. So right now the current value of start is the data property start, which is set to a value of 0. So now the problem with that is every time we click the load more button, this value, a value of 0, is gonna stay at 0, and it's gonna keep loading the first 2 posts since our amount of posts is 2, so it's gonna keep loading the same 2 posts over and over again. So let's go to our GraphQL query. Localhost 1337/GraphQL. And I'm just gonna paste my query into the playground. again, we'll go to our query variables, and I'm gonna query limit, so the amount of posts we're gonna show, and we'll put 2. And start, we will set this to 0. So we have the first post and our second post, just like what's shown in our current post page. So as I was saying before, the value of start will stay at 0. It's just going to keep loading the first post and the second post. So you'll have the first post, second post on the list already, and then first post and second post again every time you click the load more button. Now let's go back to our start variable over here. So right now the current value of start is the data property start, which is set to a value of 0. So now the problem with that is every time we click the load more button, this value, a value of 0, is gonna stay at 0, and it's gonna keep loading the first 2 posts since our amount of posts is 2, so it's gonna keep loading the same 2 posts over and over again. So let's go to our GraphQL query, localhost 1337/GraphQL, and I'm just gonna paste my query into the playground. And again, we'll go to our query variables, and I'm gonna query limit, so the amount of posts we're gonna show, and we'll put 2. And start, we will set this to 0. So we have the first post and our second post, just like what's shown in our current post page. So as I was saying before, the value of start will stay at 0. It's just going to keep loading the first post and the second post. So you'll have the first post, second post on the list already, and then first post and second post again every time you click the load more button. What we got to do is we got to somehow increase this value every time the load more button is clicked. But we can't just increase its value by 1 each time, and I'll show you why. So back to our playground, if we let's change the start to 1 and see what post we get. That didn't work. Oh, comma. So when start value is at 1, you get the second and the third post. So there's only 2 posts in total because our limit is set to 2. If you increase this one more to 2, you should get the third post and the fourth post. So what's gonna happen is first post and second post will show, and then increasing the start by 1, you will end up loading another second post. You will load another second post after second post, and then the third post will load. So what we actually gotta do is we gotta make this somehow dynamic. We can't just hard code start to have a value of 0, and we also can't just increment it by 1. So what we're gonna do is we are actually gonna add an equals to this dot amount of posts. So that way, what this does is it takes the value of this dot amount of posts, which is 2, and it will add it to start. So this has a value of 2 right now, and it's gonna add it to start. So 2 plus 0 is 2. And then it's gonna store it in the start variable because of the plus equal sign operator. If you just add the 2, so this plus start has a value of 0, and this dot amount of posts has a value of 2. If you just add the 2 together and not have the assignment operator equals, you're going to get a value of 2. But that value of 2 will disappear in memory after the button is clicked. And then the next time you press or you click the load more button again, it's just going to keep doing the same thing. It's just going to add 0 and 2 together. And the value of start will always be 2. So that won't work either. We need the plus and the assignment operator for this one. Now, it may not make sense right now, but I'll show you what I mean once we finish with the rest of the code. Now let's move on to the next few lines. Right under update query, we're going to remove these 2 variables, and we're also going to remove this line, and we'll leave the return object. We can remove this tags page and the curly brace along with it. So type name, if you look into the documentation, it says don't forget to include the type name to the new result. So this is required, but we just have to change tags page to posts since our query is posts. And also we're going to change this to posts, and so you have previous results. We'll change this to posts, and the new tags variable is no longer existing since we deleted it, but instead what we can do is we can get the so the fetch more results dot posts. So we're combining the previous results to the fetch more result. And let's get rid of the has more variable. So now we just have to set our button, give it an @click, oops, and we'll give it the show more method, show more, so this method, and we'll save that and view that in the browser. So now we'll hit refresh and hit load more, so it loads the next 2 posts, and then it will load the last post since there's only one left. Let's look at that again. So the first 2 posts are loaded initially. If we take a look at the code, so initially we have the limit set to 2. So this dot amount of posts is set to 2. Now the button load more that's using the show more method, it's going to use the same limit as well. So it's going to load 2 more posts. And as you can see, the 3rd post and the 4th post is loaded. And then the 5th, which is the final post and the last one to be loaded. Let's go back to our code and let's go to the start variable here. So what if we were to remove this assignment operator and just add this dot start and this dot amount of posts? What would happen then? So I'll say that we'll view in the browser, refresh. Okay, so it loads the 3rd and the posts, the 3rd and the 4th posts. Let's hit that again, and notice it doesn't load the 5th post, but instead it loads the 3rd and the 4th again. And if you click it one more time, it's going to load the 3rd and 4th post. And it's going to keep doing that every time you hit the load more button. So why do you think that is? Well, if we return to the code, this dot start has a value of 0 from the beginning. And this dot amount of posts has a value of 2 in the beginning. So 0 plus 2 equals 2. So now the value of start is 2. So if you go back to our GraphQL playground, what does the value of 2 give us? The 3rd and the 4th post. Just like in our post list here. Every time we hit the load more button, we get the 3rd and the 4th post. Because the value of start, okay, is always 2 and never changes. That is why we have the assignment operator. So every time this gets added to this, the total value of these two, which is 2, gets stored in the data property start. It gets stored here. And this will become a 2. Okay, this is all happening under the scenes. We are not statically declaring, or we're not statically setting the value for start to 2. So now, the next time you click the button, the value of this is now 2. And this will have the same value, initial value of 2 as well, which gives us a value of 4. So what does 4? Which post does 4 having a start value of 4 give? So let's go back to our GraphQL playground and set the start to 4. That gives us the 5th post, which is exactly what we want. If we had a start value of 3, we have the 4th and the 5th, and they'd be duplicate data. We'd have this shown again, but we only want this to show after the 3rd and the 4th posts are shown. So the 3rd and the 4th posts are shown when a start has a value of 2, as you can see. Again, we don't want the value 3 because the 4th post is again in the list. So the value that we want is 4, which will give us the 5th post. So let's return back to let's return the start variable back to original. So this dot start plus equals this dot amount of posts. Hit save. Refresh the browser. Hit the load more, and it loads the third and fourth post as it should, and hit it one more time to get the fifth post. And there you have it, guys. That concludes our tutorial. If you guys found this video helpful, please like the video and please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.